With the words "Bam" and "Kapow" exploding on screen and a lively soundtrack, Batman 1966 was once a brilliant icon of 1960s pop culture, where the superhero carried a spirit of fun rather than violence. But behind the mask, the neon lights and the laughter, was another world where the actors struggled with oblivion, the pressure of fame, and the silent tragedies that swallowed their lives. The show made viewers smile, but for the people involved it became a long shadow they could never escape. William Dozier as the narrator. Enthusiastic voice, silent life. When Batman 1966 premiered, William Dozier was already a man of 58, born on February 13, 1908 in Omaha, Nebraska. He was not only the narrator throughout all 120 episodes, but also the producer and the mastermind behind the pop art, stylistic approach of the series. His voice, energetic, dramatic, and full of vigor, was the very soul guiding viewers through every action sequence of Batman and Robin. Ironically, despite being the recognizable voice of an entire generation, William Dozier was almost invisible to the public. After Batman ended, that iconic narration was quickly forgotten, along with the colorful style of television that the 1960s left behind. William once joked in a rare interview, "People know my voice, but no one wants to see me." Subsequently, he retired from Hollywood, nearly vanishing from the screen. In his final years, he lived with his wife in a small house in California, no longer invited for voiceover work, no one asking about Batman. For William Dozier, fame came late and departed quietly, as if he were only the narrator for other people's lives, but no one ever narrated his own story. He passed away on April 23, 1991 at the age of 83. That voice now only echoes in memory, a testament to the paradox of fame. Sometimes you can be the voice of an era, yet still live and die in silence. Adam West as Batman, Bruce Wayne, the hero trapped in his own mask. When he put on the gray suit and the cowl in 1966, Adam West was 38, an actor, born on September 19, 1928, in Walla Walla, Washington. Throughout 120 episodes, he became the embodiment of Batman, a humorous, bright, and adventurous version completely opposite to the darkness of later Batman. For millions of viewers, Adam West was the hero of their childhood. But for him, that role quickly turned into an invisible shackle. After Batman ended in 1968, Adam was turned away by Hollywood. Producers did not want to see him in any other role. Batman was too famous for him to become anyone else. He recounted that in the 1970s, he had to live off convention appearances dressing up as Batman to earn money and take photos with children. Those were humiliating years for a man who had been a television star. Despite this, Adam West was not bitter. He gradually learned to joke about that image, turning it into graceful self-parody. In his old age, he was loved again by a new generation of fans through his voice work in Family Guy, where he himself played a satirical version of Adam West, the old Batman. When he passed away on June 9, 2017, at the age of 88, Adam had lived long enough to see his name honored as a pioneer of mass superhero culture. But deep within that mask was still a man overshadowed by his own image throughout his life, a hero who was never allowed to take off his role. Alan Napier as Alfred Pennyworth, the solitary butler, behind the Batcave door. When Batman aired in 1966, Alan Napier was already 61, born on January 7, 1905 in Birmingham, England. He came from an intellectual lineage, having studied at the Oxford School of Art and trained as a classical stage actor. But instead of Shakespeare or Chekhov, fate led him to the role of Alfred Pennyworth, the composed and loyal butler in 120 episodes of Batman 1966. It was a supporting role, but it became the quiet soul amidst the colorful and chaotic world of Gotham. For Alan, Batman was a rare, steady job in his later years, after years of struggling with small roles in Hollywood. However, he once admitted that he couldn't understand the American audience's frenzy for a show he considered a live-action cartoon. Nonetheless, he performed his role diligently, with his aristocratic demeanor, warm voice, and compassionate gaze that made Alfred an icon of loyalty and virtue. When Batman ended, Alan Napier nearly withdrew from the screen. He lived in seclusion in Santa Monica, spending time painting, reading, and writing his memoirs. In the final pages of his unfinished manuscript, he wrote, "I once stood on the greatest stages, but people only remember me when I was bringing tea trays in the Batcave." Alan Napier passed away on August 8, 1988, at the age of 83. Just like Alfred, he departed quietly, a true gentleman loyal to the end to the role that confined yet redeemed him. Neil Hamilton as Commissioner Gordon, the moral icon in a fake world. Before Gotham existed on the small screen, Neil Hamilton was a famous star of 1920s Hollywood. Born on September 9, 1899 in Lynn, Massachusetts, he entered the film industry in his early 20s, quickly becoming a romantic idol in the silent film era. But time is cruel. When talkies emerged, many old actors were left behind. Hamilton was one of them. By 1966, when he was invited to play Commissioner Gordon in Batman, he was 67, seasoned, composed, and carrying the natural sternness of someone who had witnessed an entire era collapse. Throughout 120 episodes, he embodied the honest police commissioner, always believing in justice and ideals. A moral icon amidst the city full of sin. But in real life, Neil lived in a completely different adversity. His career was over, his finances were depleted, and his fame was almost forgotten. Hamilton accepted the role in Batman not out of passion, but because he needed money to sustain his life. He once told co-stars that he felt embarrassed wearing the plastic police uniform and called the show a joke for children, but at least it paid on time. Nevertheless, his very seriousness gave the character Gordon more depth than anyone else in that pop art world. After Batman, Hamilton could not find any other roles. He passed away on September 24, 1984, at the age of 85. A life that was once a cinematic icon ultimately ended in the role of a man protecting fake justice, as if he remained loyal to an old ideal, even knowing that the world around him was merely a backdrop. Cesar Romero as the Joker, the endless smile of the clown who never took off his makeup. Cesar Romero was born on February 15, 1907 in New York, into a prestigious family of Cuban descent. He began his Hollywood career in the 1930s, known as the Latin gentleman, tall, handsome, suave, always appearing as the charming lover. When he accepted the role of the Joker in Batman 1966, he was 59, bringing with him the rich experience of an actor who had witnessed the golden age of cinema. In 22 episodes, Romero not only created a classic Joker, brilliant, insane, and exaggerated as if stepping out of a comic book, but also infused it with an aristocratic style, transforming him into a sophisticated clown, simultaneously terrifying and charming. Interestingly, he refused to shave his mustache for the role, forcing the white makeup to be painted over his gray whiskers. A perfect symbol for his true self, always smiling, always hiding, never letting anyone see what was beneath the disguise. Off-screen, Cesar Romero was a mild-mannered, courteous person loved by his colleagues. But he also lived separately, avoiding the media and never publicly discussing his private life. During a time when Hollywood was full of prejudice, there were many rumors about his sexuality, but Cesar chose silence. He once said in a rare interview, "A good actor knows when to let the character speak for him." Perhaps that is why he always chose roles that wore a mask to be free, even if only for a few minutes on screen. Romero continued working until the end of his life, appearing in hundreds of films and television shows. He passed away on January 1, 1994, at the age of 86 after contracting pneumonia. A quiet death, just as he lived amidst the laughter, the lights, and countless secrets. With Batman 1966, Cesar Romero's Joker remains an immortal image, a clown so brilliant that he did not need to take off his makeup to make the world remember him, just like Cesar, who lived his entire life with a smile that never faded. Stafford Repp as Chief O'Hara. Cheerful smile on a weary heart. Born on April 26, 1918 in San Francisco, Stafford Repp served in the United States Army Air Force before finding his way into acting. When Batman premiered in 1966, he was 48, not young enough to dream about Hollywood, but still enthusiastic enough to embody Chief O'Hara, the chubby, humorous police officer who trusted Batman implicitly. Throughout 120 episodes, he was a source of comedic energy, helping to soften the serious atmosphere of Gotham. However, beyond the studio gates was a solitary man. Stafford lost his wife in his early 30s, and since then he lived reclusively, never remarrying. In the late 1960s, when Batman went off the air, his health seriously declined due to a heart condition. Though carrying inner sorrow and constant aches, he still tried to attend events, smiling and signing autographs for fans as if nothing were wrong. Friends recounted that Stafford had a habit of sitting alone in a small cafe near the studio, jotting down comedy ideas that he hoped one day to write into his own script. But that day never came. He passed away suddenly from a heart attack on November 5, 1974, at the age of 56, when the world still only remembered him as Gotham's cheerful policeman. In the history of Batman, Chief O'Hara was a supporting character, always standing behind the spotlight of the masked hero. And in real life, Stafford Repp was just such a man, living humbly, quietly, dedicating himself and departing while his laughter still echoed. Madge Blake as Aunt Harriet, the kind, solitary woman in a fantasy city. Madge Blake was born on May 31, 1899, in Kinsley, Kansas. She came to Hollywood very late, nearly 50 years old, when she began her acting career after having worked for the military during World War II. When she accepted the role of Aunt Harriet Cooper in Batman 1966, she was 67, a kind, benevolent face amidst the colorful world of superheroes. In 96 episodes, Aunt Harriet was a symbol of family, the image of a warm woman amidst fictional battles, making audiences feel that Gotham still had a small corner of love and decency. But behind that gentle smile was a heart slowly withering from old age and illness. During the filming of Batman, Madge Blake's health visibly deteriorated. She suffered from heart failure, often needing breaks between scenes. Co-stars recalled that she was still determined to do her own makeup and prepare her own costumes for fear of bothering others. However, as her condition worsened, the role of Aunt Harriet was gradually reduced, then disappeared from the final part of the series, a cruel silence towards a person who was so attached to and loved her character. After Batman ended, Blake was nearly forgotten. Without contracts and with no family by her side, she lived in seclusion in California, relying on veteran actors' assistance. On February 19, 1969, Madge Blake passed away at the age of 69 in a small hospital. No flashbulbs, no interviews, just a few old colleagues at the funeral. Nevertheless, millions of viewers still remember her. The woman who brought the warmth of family into the fictional world, reminding us that even in gloomy Gotham, compassion still has a place. Yvonne Craig as Batgirl, Barbara Gordon. The heroine bound in purple spandex. Yvonne Craig was born on May 16, 1937, in Taylorville, Illinois. Before becoming an actress, she was a professional ballet dancer, a rigorously trained, disciplined, and passionate artist. When she embodied Batgirl in Batman in 1967 at the age of 30, Yvonne brought to the character a modern, bold, and confident vitality, something that American small screens had almost never seen in a female superhero at that time. Batgirl was a revolutionary step. She was neither a love interest nor a sidekick. She acted on her own, made her own decisions, and most importantly, she did not need Batman or Robin to rescue her. But precisely because of this, Yvonne Craig soon became a victim of prejudice. While female audiences admired Batgirl, producers only saw a body in a tight suit. They asked her to move slower, be more alluring, causing the strong character Yvonne built to gradually turn into a decorative symbol. She once said bitterly, "I fought on screen, but off-screen I lost the battle to the men behind the camera." After Batman ended, Yvonne refused cheap, suggestive roles, choosing to withdraw from the Hollywood mainstream and seek freedom in writing, business, and public speaking. In her final years, while battling breast cancer and then liver cancer, she still drove herself to fan conventions, signing autographs and smiling not as an old star, but as a woman who never stopped fighting for herself. Yvonne Craig passed away on August 17, 2015, at the age of 78. And if Gotham was a world of darkness, Her Batgirl was the first brilliant purple light, a reminder that female power does not need to be saved, only respected. Burgess Meredith as the Penguin, the sharp clown battling old age. Born in New Haven, Connecticut on November 16, 1907, Burgess Meredith was an experienced actor dedicated to stage and screen since his youth. When he accepted the role of the Penguin in Batman 1966 at the age of 59, he brought a mischievous, humorous, and slightly dramatic quality to the character. Every movement, glance, and laugh became an unforgettable symbol of the series. On-screen, Penguin was a sharp, colorful clown. Off-screen, Burgess had to deal with illness, old age, and weariness, but still resolutely continued his work, fully maintaining his passion for acting. He once shared that declining health did not stop him from filming because for Burgess, acting was breath and life. "As long as you can act, you exist," he said. However, few knew that behind the makeup and the bright lights, Burgess lived most of his life in solitude and silence, taking care of himself and his private family, quietly preparing for the scenes where the audience only saw a smile and an eccentric suit. Burgess Meredith passed away on September 9, 1997, at the age of 89. The Penguin he left behind remains an iconic image, but the price for that glamour was years of resilience, silently battling reality. A clear testament to the paradox of an artist brilliant on screen but silent in real life. Victor Buono as King Tut, the fleeting glory of a young genius. Victor Buono was born in San Diego, California on February 3, 1938, when he was chosen to embody King Tut in Batman 1966. At the young age of 28, he brought to the character an eccentricity mixed with humor and overflowing energy, leaving a deep impression in 10 episodes. King Tut became an unforgettable image on screen, but for Victor, success came too fast like a sweeping wave with no time to prepare for reception. Early fame forced Victor to struggle between his artistic self and the brilliant image that the public loved. He once admitted that people only remembered the bizarre King Tut, but few recognized the talent, the sharpness, and the depth of an ambitious young actor. In the years that followed, Victor continued to work on screen, but opportunities to escape King Tut's shadow were few, and his youth passed in the feeling of being typecast by the very role that brought him fame. Victor Buono passed away on January 1, 1982, at the age of 43. King Tut lives on in the audience's memory, brilliant and funny, but Victor's true story is a sad reminder the spotlight came too soon and left too quickly, leaving a personal life full of regret and unfulfilled opportunities. Frank Gorshin as the Riddler, the mad genius trapped in his own shadow. When he embodied the Riddler in Batman 1966, Frank Gorshin, born on April 5, 1933, at the age of 33, brought to the character a cunning, eccentric, and frenetic rhythm that made every appearance unforgettable. In 10 episodes, Riddler emerged as a mad genius full of energy. But this very prominence also pushed Frank into his own challenge, having to live under the enormous shadow he created. Beneath the makeup, the sly eyes, and the strange smile, Frank had to face professional pressure and depression while fighting to be recognized as a versatile actor, not just the eccentric face on screen. Temporary successes and audience fervor could not fill the loneliness or the limited opportunities due to this overly distinctive role. Frank Gorshin passed away on May 17, 2005, at the age of 72. The Riddler lives on in the fans' memory, but Frank's true story is proof of the paradox of talent, brilliant on screen, full of creativity, but trapped in the very image he created, facing internal struggles that few people saw. Looking back at Batman 1966, the stars on the small screen not only brought laughter and vibrant entertainment moments, but also left an indelible mark on viewers' memories. Every role, from the eccentric Penguin to the brave Batgirl, became an icon, but the real-life stories of the actors remind us that behind that glamour were deep struggles, loneliness, illness, or professional pressures that few people knew about. They lived their whole lives to inspire, but also had to face challenges that the screen could not show. This very contrast between the brilliant joy on screen and the quiet, silent life off-screen opens a natural transition to explore other tragedies in classic Hollywood. And as the lights of Gotham fade, we turn to the world of Bewitched, where humor and magic cover a subtle layer of tragedy for the actors, revealing the everyday stories behind the enchanting smiles of Samantha and the characters in this classic sitcom. Elizabeth Montgomery as Samantha Stevens. Elizabeth Montgomery, born April 15, 1933, became a television legend when she stepped into the role of Samantha Stevens on Bewitched in 1964. She was just 31 years old, radiant, poised, and effortlessly magical. The perfect suburban witch with a twitch of her nose and a heart of gold. But the real woman behind the charm was anything but conventional. Her life was a storm of broken marriages, emotional battles, and a constant fight to be seen as something more than America's sweetheart. Elizabeth was born into Hollywood royalty, the daughter of actor Robert Montgomery, a man as revered as he was controlling. From a young age, she was pushed toward the spotlight, but forced to walk a narrow line, always graceful, always proper, always smiling. That early pressure shaped her and wounded her. While she loved performing, she often longed to break free from the image her father and the industry imposed on her. When she took the role of Samantha, a witch trying to live a normal life, she connected to it far more deeply than fans realized. Samantha wasn't just fun and fantasy. She was Elizabeth's rebellion, a symbol of a woman with power forced to hide it to keep others comfortable. Behind the scenes of Bewitched Elizabeth's life was far more complicated than the perfect housewife she portrayed. She married 4 times, most famously to producer William Asher, who directed and co-created Bewitched. Their marriage initially seemed like a dream match, but the truth was darker. Asher controlled much of her career, and as their marriage began to crumble, so did her joy in the show. By the final seasons, Elizabeth grew distant, and the sparkle in Samantha's eyes began to fade. They divorced in 1973. Elizabeth also had a secret affair with Richard Michaels, the show's director, during the final season, a relationship that contributed to the show's abrupt end in 1972. The fallout was painful. She walked away not just from the series, but from the image of Samantha altogether. After Bewitched, Elizabeth tried to reinvent herself. She took on serious, often gritty roles, including a rape survivor in A Case of Rape and Lizzie Borden in The Legend of Lizzie Borden. These performances earned her critical acclaim, but they also revealed something raw and unresolved in her. She was searching for her voice, and for the first time stepping into characters that mirrored her internal battles, but her personal life remained unsettled. Her 4th and final marriage to actor Robert Foxworth brought some peace, but her relationship with her children was sometimes strained. She struggled with feelings of guilt, distance, and the cost of always being on. Friends described her as a woman of deep warmth and deep sadness. She hated interviews, avoided fan events, and often deflected praise with sarcasm. It was as if she never truly believed she had earned the love she received. In the early 1990s, Elizabeth was diagnosed with colon cancer. She kept it private, telling only her closest family and refusing to let the public see her suffering. The disease spread quickly to her liver, but she refused aggressive treatment, choosing instead to spend her final months at home in Beverly Hills with Foxworth and her children nearby. On May 18, 1995, Elizabeth Montgomery died in her sleep at the age of 62. No funeral was held per her wishes. She was cremated, and her ashes scattered a quiet end to a woman whose life had always been lived in the public eye, even when her soul remained hidden. Dick York as Darrin Stevens. Dick York, born September 4, 1928 in Fort Wayne, Indiana, stepped into the role of Darrin Stevens, the often frustrated but lovable husband of Samantha when Bewitched debuted in 1964. He was 36 years old, charming, boyish, and full of nervous energy, the perfect mortal foil to a magical wife. On screen, he was hilarious and endearing, but off-screen his life was slowly crumbling, wrecked by a painful injury, an opioid addiction that followed, and a Hollywood that discarded him when he needed help the most. York began acting in radio as a child during the Great Depression, helping support his family with his voice before ever stepping in front of a camera. By his 20s, he was working alongside Hollywood greats like Gary Cooper in They Came to Cordura 1959. It was during the filming of that movie that his life changed forever. While filming a scene involving a railroad handcar, York was severely injured, tearing the muscles along the right side of his back and neck. The pain was immediate and excruciating, but also invisible. And so, like many actors of his time, he pressed on, ignoring the agony while quietly becoming dependent on painkillers just to function. By the time Bewitched began, York was already battling chronic pain, masking it with medication and willpower. He often filmed episodes propped up on one side using cleverly placed furniture or camera angles to hide his struggle. The cast and crew adored him, but they could see him fading. Elizabeth Montgomery and Agnes Moorehead in particular tried to protect him on set, but the pain never left. Never. In 1969, after 5 seasons, York collapsed on set. The pain had become unmanageable. He was forced to leave the show and was quietly replaced by Dick Sargent. There was no farewell episode, no explanation, just a disappearance as if Darrin himself had been wished away. And just like that, Dick York's career was over. Hollywood stopped calling. He was typecast, broken, and addicted. For years, he lived in poverty, racked by physical agony and the humiliation of being forgotten. He and his wife, Joan "Joey" York, moved into a small house in Michigan where she cared for him while he struggled to regain his life. He never stopped trying. In the 1980s, after decades of silence, Dick York re-emerged not as an actor, but as an activist. He founded Acting for Life, a non-profit organization aimed at helping the homeless and those in need. Even as he lived with emphysema and breathing through an oxygen tank, he made calls to donors, wrote letters, and gave interviews from his hospital bed. On February 20th, 1992, Dick York died at the age of 63 in Grand Rapids, Michigan, from complications of emphysema. He had smoked for most of his life, a habit he admitted helped him cope with stress and pain. His final words spoken to his beloved wife Joey were simply, "I love you." Dick Sargent as Darrin Stevens. Dick Sargent, born Richard Stanford Cox on April 19, 1930 in Carmel, California, became the new face of Darrin Stevens on Bewitched in 1969 after Dick York's health forced him to leave the show. At 39 years old, Sargent stepped into an impossible role, replacing a beloved actor in a beloved show, all while hiding a truth he couldn't speak aloud. On screen, he was polished and professional. His version of Darrin was more reserved, slightly more cynical, but still deeply in love with Samantha. He carried the role with dignity, despite constant comparisons and backlash from fans who preferred York. But behind the smile and the suits was a man quietly carrying a lifelong secret, one that in the era of 1960s Hollywood could destroy a career. He was gay. Sargent came from a well-off background. His mother was a successful film and television producer, and his early years were filled with promise. He studied drama at Stanford University and soon found work in television and film. He appeared in dozens of shows before Bewitched, including The Tammy Grimes Show, Gunsmoke, and Leave It to Beaver. But despite the growing resume, he was never fully at ease, always watching what he said, how he moved, who he was seen with. When he joined Bewitched, the pressure intensified. The show's wholesome image and massive popularity meant that any hint of scandal could have cost him everything. So he smiled, acted, and stayed quiet, even as the role that brought him the most fame also trapped him in silence. After Bewitched ended in 1972, Sargent's career slowly declined. He appeared in smaller roles, TV, movies, and commercials, but he was never again a household name. In interviews, he seemed upbeat, but friends later revealed he struggled with depression, loneliness, and anger at the double life he had been forced to live. Everything changed in 1991 when Sargent, now in his 60s, publicly came out as gay, becoming one of the first major television stars to do so. He did it on National Coming Out Day, not for attention, but to stand in solidarity with LGBTQ+ youth struggling with their identity. He later said, "I would rather lose a job than lose myself." It was an act of deep courage and quiet liberation. In that same year, tragedy struck. His longtime partner died of a brain tumor, and soon after Sargent was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Though weakened, he devoted his final years to AIDS awareness, LGBTQ+ activism, and speaking openly about acceptance and love, often at a time when the public still didn't want to hear it. On July 8, 1994, Dick Sargent died at the age of 64 at his home in Los Angeles. He died peacefully, surrounded by love, no longer hiding. His ashes were scattered in the Pacific Ocean. The cast of Bewitched gave everything they had on screen and off, and though their time has passed, their legacy still shimmers like fairy dust across generations. If their stories moved you, honor their memory by liking, sharing, and subscribing, so the magic never fades and the people behind it are never forgotten.